absolutely fantastic conversation with Coach Me Plus's Kevin Dawidowicz. Kevin is a absolute gem, a wealth of knowledge, and this talk, guys, really has a ton of nuggets in it. Of course, talking with Kevin, we need to be talking about athlete monitoring, right? So first thing we get into is where exactly do you start? You know, it's something now where this whole idea of monitoring and assessing and sports science has become sexy, but we're all kind of in a similar situation of figuring out where to start with this. So we get into that, and Kevin talks about how one question can really limit a lot of the confusion that people have with what they're doing. He then gets into some really simple ways that you can start moving in this direction to having a, quote, sports science department. You know, and then breaking down the whole idea of earning your monitoring. This was a very, very repeated theme at this year's edition of the seminar, and Kevin gets into some really neat ideas with that. Guys, this is an awesome talk. I really hope you enjoy it. Let's get right to it. Kevin, thanks for being on, man. So we're going to talk a little bit of monitoring here and getting people started. So why not have the man that does all the work behind the scenes get people plugging away at this?
How's it going, Jay?
Good fantastic, man. Fantastic.
Meet you, see you, meet you. I think I've met you, what, a year and a half ago now?
Yeah.
It was one of those weird things where I meet Jay DeMeo, like he's this mythical guy down in Virginia. Everybody's talking about him. It's like, you got to meet this guy. He knows what he's talking about. I'm like, okay, I'll finally get down there. And I meet you, and it's literally like I've known you forever.
Upstate New York, man.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but there was some strange connection. It's just like, yeah, I know who the J guy is, and you use the same terminology I do, and just everything. I don't know. Anyway, but we hit it off pretty easily.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think it's because we both see a lot of the same things, and we see the profession and the industry kind of moving in the same direction. So I think that this will be a neat thing to share with some people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one thing that we have the benefit of seeing is variety, right? Like a lot of people might be kind of tied to a hockey program or a football program or a basketball program, whatever it is, and you kind of get myopic. You get stuck in like the one mindset, and it's like, this is the only thing I want to do. And the one thing we get to see is everything from everybody, from every kind of sport. And there are things that we've seen, like in Olympic wrestling, that can be applied in basketball, or things that are two dissimilar sports, basketball and hockey, that both have scheduling issues and guys with fatigue, and how do they manage that type of stuff. So because we see all of these different things, we're able to have conversations that are helpful on both sides.
That's awesome. So then, looking at it through this grand scope of everything, where would you start with all this?
So the one thing that we seem to have recurring as a theme over and over again is there's a lot of confusion in the market, right? Teams. When we talk to teams, they're like, "Hey, I hear about this monitoring technology, or this screening technology, or this. I want to buy GPS, or I want to buy HRV, or I want to buy, some sort of screening platform, or whatever it is." And my response to that always is, "Well, if you had that, what would you do with it?" And that's where the real conversation begins to kick off, right? I want to use GPS. Okay, you want to use GPS. What type of things do you want to monitor with that? What type of things do you expect to get a result out of that? And asking that question, like, sometimes it either like brings the conversation to a screeching halt, and everybody goes, "Well, we don't know yet. We're just trying to figure it out." Or you actually get the understanding of what the organization values and what they want to do. Not only do we have that cross-sport benefit of talking to different sports, but we also have the benefit of talking to different departments. So if you take a look at a typical organization, you're going to have your strength conditioning coach, and I don't say typical organization, but let's think about the typical roles in an organization. Mm-hmm. Strength conditioning coach, your athletic trainer, your position coaches, your sports medicine guy, your sports science guy, and if you go upstairs and you bring in your team doctors, or if you're in the European model, you bring in your physios. All these people have different thoughts on what's important. Your strength conditioning coach might want to see a velocity-based training system. Your athletic trainers might believe in movement screens and preventative and corrective work. Your position coaches just want to see video, and they want to see if their guy's ready and they're able to play, but they also might want to see RPE or something like that comes out when a player's coming off the field, and what their reaction was to the work. Sports medicine, they're always kind of dabbling in things like cryo chambers and recovery boots, and they want to have the latest recovery methodologies. Sports scientists, they all want to track loads and track fatigue numbers. So you're looking at GPS and HRV. So everybody's got their own strengths and weaknesses, and because of that, back to that original point, it just adds to the confusion. So you have to look at it from an organization and sit at a table and honestly look across the table from your role to the other roles, and understand what can you actually pull off and what can you actually do as an organization to get immediate benefit, or to have a long-term plan that's gonna get you there. It's really an issue of culture more than it is technology, because we can talk tech all day long. Like literally, we monitor 150 to 200 different device companies that on an ongoing basis to see what they're doing, what the latest coolest tech is, and everything else like that. Throw on top of that apps and everything else like that, and you're up in the hundreds and hundreds of different things you can be doing. But if you can't answer the basic questions as an organization, and you discuss culture, and you discuss the strengths and weaknesses of your organization and what you can actually do, then you're just doing yourself disservice if you go out and buy tech.
That's interesting. Especially coming from a guy who is
selling tech.
Yeah. Who's at the forefront of all of that. So then where do you have these people start? So you walk in, and you walk into the Robbins Center, and you sit down there with me and Stu, and you say, okay, probably the simplest way for you guys to start building some sort of program is with what?
It's understanding your philosophy. So we ask you the questions. What are you doing for tracking player load? And that could be something like GPS, or it could be something like sets and reps. So you listen to what the philosophy is of the person that you're talking to. What are you doing for measuring fatigue? Well, we're going to jump on force plates, or we're going to do grip strengths with a dynamometer, or we're going to do heart rate variability. And you understand where the strengths and weaknesses of the organization come to. Because if we walked in with the solution, you're immediately going to polarize the room. And, hey, this is what we do, and this is what we believe in, and this is the methodology. You should be looking at, DC potential from megawave. I don't think omega wave is the unit that I should be using. All of a sudden, you've created some polarizing conversation, and you need to understand what they're doing before you can begin offering solutions.
So then, let's say we don't have access to those things.
Yep.
Let's say the only thing that we have access to then would be Microsoft Excel and maybe a scale and a Vertex.
Yep.
How would you sort of help these people move forward with that?
Well, let's go with the most basic thing that you could do with your athlete. What can you do on a daily basis that's going to improve the lives of your athlete, and understand where they are and where they're heading? And I could put a guy on a scale every day, track his weights. I don't need any software for that, right? I don't need tech for that. I have a scale in front of me. Go stand on the scale. How much do you weigh today? And track that over time. And I could do that on paper. I could do that in Excel. I can do that any way I want. But just understanding where they are and what they're doing on a daily basis, and where that number is on a daily basis, begins your journey into tracking and monitoring something. I don't care what it is, but right now we're going to track and monitor player weight. That's the most basic thing we can do. And we're going to have the guys come in before they work out and weigh in. Okay, everybody weighs in. We're good. We're beginning our process as a sports science organization, and we're monitoring guys weighing in. Now let's add like some real value to that. We're gonna have the guys weigh out after they're done, and make sure they actually take their heavy, sweaty clothes off, because actually kind of throws off the number. So we're gonna have you weigh out after you're done. So weigh in, weigh out, and what's the percentage of weight loss that you had between your weigh in and your weigh out during your workout session? That number is an immediate indicator of some sort of risk for whether or not an athlete might be dehydrated or not. So now I've taken no science, no tech, but I've weighed my athlete in, I've weighed him out, and if he's over 1%, we're gonna rehydrate him with fluids. If he's over 2%, we're gonna intervene and maybe give him some more treatment, maybe an IV or something like that. If he's over 3%, then we really have an issue. Like something like that is so basic and doesn't require any tech, but organizations can't pull that off. Like, you want to put devices on guys and measure everything, but you can't get them to comply with something as simple as weighing in, weighing out, and then doing something if there's an issue. Then you really need to look at yourself as an organization and get there before you can move on and start buying some cool whiz-bang tech and throwing that on top of them.
Yeah. No, that's an awesome point, because it's, people discussed this year at the seminar, where it was basically earning your monitoring. Yeah. And this would be a really simple way for people to start earning their monitoring by, will Craig drink his water after the workout? As crazy and stupid as that sounds, there are going to be coaches listening to this that'll be like, well, I've got 2 or 3 guys that'll tell me to go pound sand. They're not going to do it.
Right.
Well, then, what are they going to do when you hook them up to an Omega Wave and it tells you what it tells you, and you have all these decisions made for them, and they're just like, no, I'm not going to show up and do that. I'm either going to go do this, or I'm just not going to do it.
Or if you want them, I'm going to have my guys do a wellness questionnaire, and they see the same questions over and over again and get fatigued by it, and they're just like, yeah, man, why am I answering this thing? I'm not going to do it. I don't have a phone, smart app. I don't want to. You got to make it simple for these guys, right? How do you engage them in a way that's actually helpful? And if you can, I'm just going to stick with this. I mean, it's so stupid and it's so simple, but it really is. Can I get my guys to weigh in? Can I get my guys to weigh out? Can I see them, and when they have that issue, know that I'm going to take care of them, right? My athlete wants to know, why the hell am I doing this again? Why am I standing on the scale? Why are you writing down numbers? Because at the end of the day, if something's wrong, we're going to bring you in and we're going to take care of you. Our best interest is keeping you on the field. And if we can do this, if we can monitor and we can make it easy, then we're going to keep you on the court, we're going to keep you on the field, we're going to keep you on the ice, and we're going to make sure that you actually get your best availability and best player availability, so you can actually get to performance, right? And then you want to start talking about tracking performance and everything else like that. But most organizations, just something as simple as this, have a challenge in pulling it off. So let's move beyond that and into other monitoring stuff. Like, what else do you want to do? I just mentioned wellness questionnaires. You can do that with Excel. You can do that with pen and paper. You can do that with Google Forms and things like that. You don't need software to do a wellness questionnaire. Software makes it easier, but if you want to track trends over time, here's another way of actually capturing that information and getting the subjective and the objective views of data kind of together. You're starting somewhere, and you're actually beginning to understand what your athletes look like in the morning when they're coming in. They're saying they didn't get any sleep, and when they're coming in the morning and saying that they didn't, they're feeling in a bad mood or whatever it might be. That's another simple way to track something that starts off your day on the right foot and actually gets you an understanding for how these guys are ready and prepared for the day. And the number one lesson that I always try to stress with anybody who starts with wellness questionnaires is not to look at the athlete against other athletes. Because for me, my mood might always be a 5, and for you, your mood might always be a 10 or a 9 or whatever it is. If we test ourselves against each other, it's never going to be, there's never going to be an average in that group. So you need to test the athlete against himself, and what you're looking for is a change in that condition. So if I'm always a 5 and I move to a 7, there's the issue. Or if I'm always a 5 and I move to a 3, sorry, if I move to a 7, that's good. If I move to a 3, there's the issue. So you want to always test the athlete against himself. And, you can use spreadsheets to do this. You can use software to do this. But, the key point is really just to monitor against that person. And that's another kind of cultural mindset to bring into an organization, right? Like we can talk about, we've got these, we're doing a population of all my defensive backs, so I know that this guy ran faster than the rest of them. So what? Like at this level, all of your athletes are freaks. You're going to have the guys who are outliers and guys who are at the top and the bottom. It doesn't matter. Did he run faster than himself? In this type of training, did he, have a higher load than himself? So again, to bring that, we want to do monitoring. Let's go backwards. Are you actually testing athletes against themselves? And that's a whole other cultural, foundation that you need to have before you can start getting into this other cool stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's the outliers of the individual that are the things that send off the red flags.
Yep.
And it's awesome that you bring that up because that, to be honest, man, when we started with the questionnaires, I mean, I was sitting there just typing things in at breakfast, and I'm like, you know what? It's 1 to 5. It's 5 questions. 20 and up is good. To 15 is like a C, and under that, it's like, uh-oh. And there's like some cats on the team that were always like 14, 15, 16, somewhere in that range. And I'm just like, dude, what is wrong with these cats? And then you look, and it's like every day, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4. 3, 3, 3, 4, 4. And then it's like 2, 1, 1, 1, 2. And instead of being like, oh shit, this is bad, being like, oh, well, that's only a 7. Instead of being like, that what was that? 3, 3, 3, 4, 4. That 17 turned into a 7.
Yeah.
And once we did that, it totally changed all of it.
Yeah, because you're always going to be an 18, and I'm always going to be a 7. I'm just a pessimist, and I'm just a cranky dude. Mm-hmm. But when I go from a 7 to a 4, and that's a bigger issue than me being a 7. And it's such a simple paradigm to kind of fit everything into, but you don't have that foundation, you're missing the point when you start adding tech on top of it. So that's the other, so where are we at so far? We've got daily weigh-ins, we've got wellness questionnaires, we've got weigh-outs after they're done, we're checking them for dehydration with the weigh-out information. What else can we add? How about session RPE? Don't need tech for that, right? Mm-hmm. Like guys coming off the court, coach planned for a practice, and he knows what this practice was supposed to be like, and the kids come off, or the athletes come off, and it's like, okay, what did that feel like to you? Now, there was a great Keith D'Amelio just did a presentation, and he was talking about recovery work, and this is why RPE is. I always thought of it as kind of like some pseudoscience and a little bit weird, but then I saw the value in it when he was actually explaining this scenario. And he was talking about guys who were in the pool doing floating. Well, I'm going to go in the pool and just float. I'm just going to chill. This is some downtime. We're going to relax. We're going to do some light motion, some light walking motion. We're going to lay on our backs. We're going to, they put like a inflatable vest on the guys so you can actually like kind of chill in the pool, and this is recovery time. But there was one guy who could not float. He could swim. What was the thing? I could swim, but you didn't. You could ask me if I swim, but you didn't ask me if I could float. That was like the quote that he used. The guy just would not. They put him floaties, and they gave him noodles and arm things and everything else like that. And the guy was just thrashing in the water all the time. So for everybody in that pool, their RPE should have been a 1. For this dude, it was a 10. Now, it explains like the type of work that this guy was doing was highly stressful compared to what everybody else was feeling. And it should have been a chill session for everyone, but this dude was way off the charts. So when the coach comes out and says, man, we're going to run him today, you're going to have those 2 or 3 guys that are like, dope, I'm ready, let's go. And you're going to have those other guys who are like, I hate running. This is not a good thing for me. And they're in their attics, man. They're in their wheelhouse, and the entire time they're like, this sucks, don't want to do it. I hate this type of work. But then they might want to go and do power cleans all day because that's the type of guy that they are. So what's that session feel like to that athlete? And then planning around that, right? So again, are you testing the athlete against himself? One might be a 10 for you, one might be a 1 for me. Is it always a 10 for you? Is it always a 1 for me? Did it go from a 1 to a 3? Did it go from a 10 to a 5? And that same mindset of actually getting the feedback from the athlete and looking at his scores against himself gives you a strong foundation for science. And if you're not doing it this way, then again, you're going to go and put a load monitor on the guy, and I'm going to use TRIMP from a heart rate monitor. Doesn't really help me if I'm testing against a population. I had an NHL team bring in one of these analytics guys that they got from a blog. 2 years ago, everybody in the NHL was hiring like bloggers for doing analytics, and yeah, it was a strange trend. I don't know what some of the guys really worked out really well. Some of them just just completely blew up. But I was at the combine and I was talking to the guy, and we were talking about statistical analysis and data and everything else like that. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm looking at this population," and I go, "What's the population you're looking at?" And he goes, "Oh, I want to find an average in all these numbers." I said, "Well, take a look at the Buffalo Sabres. I've got 2 Tylers on the Sabres. One of them is 6'8" and 225. The other one's 5'7" and 155.
Yeah.
You can tell me there's an average in there? No.
It's about 6'1".
Yeah. There's no average, man. So, and he was just like, he's like, "Oh yeah, you're right. I should think about it from the athlete perspective." And this was like an analytics stats guy, and I wasn't, I'm not. My background is like software, and the only reason that we know what we know is because we just get drilled with it every single day, and we see what fails and we see what passes, and what passes is testing athletes against themselves.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you have to make the N of 1 better for the team to become better.
You're right, man.
And I think that, bringing up all of that, how they have to be intertwined, you need to be looking at them, that's a big selling point for us. So where we can pull, each player's dashboard and be like, "Listen, so let's talk about yesterday. Let's pull up your chart and be like, hey, so you came in and you said these numbers were down. Well, if we look at your Omega Wave score, your Omega Wave scores were down. And now we can look at your RPE from lift from the last 4 times, and all of a sudden your typical 6 is now a 9.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's no secret to what I do. We almost do the same thing every day. Mm-hmm. Now there may be things that are a little harder. We may modify volumes and intensities, or we can even go look at this is how the trend was going. Now look at your Omega Wave reading, which is in the freaking can yesterday. So now we took all this stuff out, and now let's look at where you are today.
Yep.
And look at how even your questionnaire came up with it. Your questionnaire yesterday was down a little bit.
Yep.
And it's kids nowadays, especially when they can see that stuff, it really it sells to them way more than anything else. Like if they can see that this is precisely why I'm in your ear about it all the time.
Well, there has to be. It's never about the data. It's about the intervention, and I stress that point over and over again. Even when we go and sell our system into an organization, they talk about the data and how we're going to visualize the data and how we're going to manipulate it. And can I look at a moving average, and can I z-score out these values and try and get a standard deviation from a moving? Yeah, we could talk about that all day long, man. Like, cool, awesome. You got some cool looking charts. You've got some red, greens, and yellows, and all this. You've got moving numbers, and you've got spider webs, and we can talk about it all day long. Why are you doing this again? What's the intervention when something bad happens? And if you don't have that laid out, athletes don't care, man. Mm-hmm. Like they're just dude, I'm not gonna lay down on my back and do this again. I'm not sticking my finger on the athlete thing. I'm not strapping this thing to my back. Like I don't care. If you don't have some sort of point immediately to why you're doing this, then they're gonna wear out. The novelty is gonna fade away, and they're not gonna care anymore. So if you want to do functional movement screens and then give okay, we took all those functional movement screens. Why did I just do this? Oh, because we're giving you corrective work so that you can get closer to symmetry, or we're gonna try and find range of motions that work best for your position, or range of motions that work best for your abilities. You're a pitcher, and we're going to bring you to a range of motion that works, best for you, or find some risk in possible injuries in the future. But just doing the screening for the sake of the screening, I'm not doing this test again. I don't care.
Yeah,
it's they're either they're either teenagers who just want to do the 3 Fs. Or they're pro athletes who just care about their next contract and their newest watch. It's very rare that you get, and I don't say very rare, but you get your top 10% of guys who will track and do everything because they want to take care of themselves and take care of themselves the best way. You look at a guy like Fred Jackson from the Bills. He's 34 now?
Pretty close, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
33. I think he's 3 years younger than me. I think he's 33.
Yeah. How many 33-year-old running backs are there in the league?
Yeah. Well, none.
No,
yeah.
Right. The guy takes care of himself. The guy does everything he can in his best interest to make sure that his career is going to last as long as possible. And there's just guys like that care. Rod Brindamore was 42 when he retired.
Yeah.
And the guy, he was Rod the Bod. The guy took care of himself to the point where he can make his career last as long as possible. And you'll find those guys. Those guys will always do it. And if you can get your team to kind of follow behind those guys when you're talking about, we're going to do some monitoring, we're going to get these numbers, we're going to do this, and this is the intervention that we're going to have. The intervention's important. Those top-end guys will always do it, but those top-end guys will then drag those bottom 2/3 or maybe 5/8 or whatever it is of the guys with them to go along. You're always going to have your bottom 5 to 10% who just will never care, no matter what you're doing. Don't stick that thing in me. I'm not touching that. Don't put those. Don't dry needle me. Don't touch it. I don't want to. Don't touch me.
Yep.
It's just going to happen. So, how do you? I kind of went way off into weirdness land.
No, that's great.
Sorry, dude. But I guess the point I was trying to make was, if you have an intervention, the middle guys will buy in because the top guys already buy in. So the middle guys will understand why we're doing it, and they'll drag along with the top end guys. Yes. I couldn't agree more with that. That's a good point, right?
Yeah, no. And to summarize, keep it simple, but make sure it's consistent. Make them earn their way up the ladder, may we say.
Yep.
And have at least a pre-planned plan of attack, even if that changes. Even if you say, this is what we're going to do, and then 6 months later you go, whoa, that was wrong. We need to do this instead. At least and at least you can have a plan that they can go with, and then you can change on the fly as you're going.
Yep. Yeah, the earning your stripes thing, I kind of call it leveling up. A lot of these kids are used to playing apps and games and things like that where they're always trying to earn the next reward, the next point, and everything else like that. And it's look, man, if you do your daily weigh-ins and you do your wellness questionnaire and you do your RPE, you earn this awesome bling, wristy thing that gives you some player load values or GPS values or heart rate, information. Cool, man, I earned the heart rate monitor. What's next? It's kind of corny, but it works. I had a NFL coach tell me, he goes, I use the same principles that my wife, who's a kindergarten teacher, uses in her school, and that's the Gold Star system. Gold Star for doing the good thing. Gold Star for doing the good thing. He goes, but I just do it on a higher level. It's rewarding these guys for actually complying with this information so that you're benefiting both the athlete and your program. And it's as simple as a Gold Star for a 5-year-old, but it's a device, a wearable tech device for a 20-year-old who's at the peak of his athletic abilities.
Yeah.
So we want to reward these kids for actually doing the stuff that we want them to do, so that everybody's benefiting from it.
Kevin, there are a ton of huge things that are going to help a lot of people figure out this whole sports science thing here.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for dropping these knowledge bombs for us today. And people can reach you.
So they can go to coachmeplus.com or follow us on Twitter, same Twitter handle at coachmeplus. You'll see that we just had some Twitter hits. Today's the 17th for us announcing our deal with Arizona Coyotes. So got another NHL team on board as our 7th team that we got, so they can see what a team is doing when they embrace it from a total wholesome approach. From the front office all the way down to the strength coach. So there's some stuff going on there. If they need to reach me personally, they can hit me at kevin@coachmeplus.com. I occasionally tweet. I'm not a big tweeter.
San Diego? I don't know. It's something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I want to keep this PG.
Yes. But no, man, and I hope people, if they have any questions for you too, they'll share them below, or they'll tweet them at both of us, because obviously you're going to be back, and we're gonna keep rolling with this, because this is awesome stuff, and it really helps open people's minds and gets them to actually process what we're really trying to do, which is, again, affect the N of one, because the N of one is what makes the team.
Yeah, and the one piece I hope that people can walk away from with this is that everybody right now is in the same boat. Everybody is in that. Everybody I talk to comes back and they almost feel a little embarrassed, where they're like, "Hey, man, we're just beginning to understand and start tracking information." Guess what? Everybody is. Mm-hmm. We are all dealing with this right now.
Oh, yeah.
The guys that we see in the seminars and the guys that we see doing presentations and things like that, there's only 20 of those guys. Everybody else is in the same boat together, and we're all trying to figure this out, where we're all beginning to track, we're all beginning to capture information, and we're all beginning to do something with it. And nobody should feel bad when they walk out and they say, "Hey, we're going to begin doing this right now for the first time ever." It should be a great feeling that as an organization you've decided to move forward and begin to go beyond just tracking sets and reps and begin to actually start getting into doing some real stuff with athletes.
Yes. Without a doubt. Awesome. That's a killer point to end it on, man. I appreciate your time. People are going to love this, man, and we'll be in touch real soon.
All right, cool.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Huge thank you to today's guest, Coach Me Plus's Kevin Dawidowicz. Guys, I know I took a ton away from this talking with Kevin. I do every time I talk to Kevin, to be honest, but this was a great talk. I hope that if this is a direction that you guys are hoping to move in, that this helped you. Understanding some simple ideas to start the process. I'll tell you what, when we started doing this 5 or 6 years ago, I really wish that I would have thought of a bunch of this stuff prior. It would have saved me a lot of time and a ton of headaches. And with all of our stuff, guys, as always, any comments, thoughts, questions, please post them below. Post them on Facebook, at the Podomatic page, on our page, CVASPS. Tweet them at us. I hope you enjoyed it. If you got any questions, guys, Kevin is definitely going to be back on, so don't hesitate. Leave them for us. He is an absolute wealth of knowledge. He sees it from every angle, guys. He sees the monitoring stuff from every sport known to man, from pro to college and everything in between. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and we will be back next week with another awesome talk. Thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you then.